the youth towards the path of policy and politics. On the behalf of VIT Leo Club, I'm extremely happy to have Mr. Geriti with us on this occasion. Hearty welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, sir. Here on Siddharth will take over.
Yes. How are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, very good, sir. So before getting into the main theme of today, the Anti-Corruption Day, so let's have a quick insight on your journey. How did this begin and everything? Like you did your bachelor's degree in technology from Hyderabad, I guess. So and then you transformed yourself into a social activist. So how did this take place, sir? How did your journey start?
Um, I have, I mean, like, since my high school, I always been very interested in what happening around, mostly current affairs stuff and what is going on day-to-day lives of the people. Then over a period of time, it actually developed as a strong hobby to understand things which is actually happening around us, involving in this. Social work kind of like I would say like a charity kind of works. Then one time I mean like when I actually attended a seminar by a Telugu politician, I would say political reformer, JP Narayan of Loksatta. Then I actually seen these problems and also solutions for the problems that society is facing is actually had a much deeper reasons, and how we can actually tackle is one way is politics, and also other ways actually through the policy making. And but initial days, along with when I was in my bachelor's in Hyderabad, I actively involved with these organizations. There is a one organization I was actually helped to co-found is Youth for Better India, which was actually leading anti-corruption organization in Andhra and Telangana. Then also we worked with a few other organizations in Tamil Nadu and also Karnataka, where we actually did a partnership events with them. One organization is a fifth pillar, is very well known in Tamil Nadu, where they are known for creation of a 0 rupee note, where you actually give a 0 rupee note when someone is actually asked bribes. So then, then I was actually actively involved with the anti-corruption movement, India Against Corruption, and also Youth for Better India. Then I try to reflect in mid of the last decade, around like 2014 and 15, when I see how much impact I was able to actually make through activism. Then I actually try to tally it with other means of actually other means of achieving these. Then I realize public policy seems to be a better and also long impacting option than the activism. Then we started working on educating young people on various policy issues, and also asking some of the basic fundamental questions, such as what is the role of citizen, what is the role of government, what is the role of businesses and market, what is the combination or collectively, I mean, limits and also possibilities of these three larger social institutions, how we can actually balance those, and also how we can actually build better policies which can actually help a lot of people. So this was a long journey. It was actually had a connection to each other. Then finally we actually running a public policy education organization where we actually do policy education, policy outreach, and also advocacy program that can actually promote ideas, that though ideas those which can lead a better life for each and every individual.
So yes, sir, that was a great journey of yours. But then you were born in a middle class farming background family. how was the support from your family when you were into this all activist kind of social activities and all? So whenever there is a middle class family, they don't want their child to be involved in all these activities. They want their child to be well settled in a good job, any IT sector job. So how was your support? How was your family support to you when you were into this?
Very interesting question. Um, when I was working, many people who worked along the same time, those are the time when we see very least number of people who is engaged in these kind of activities. There are some people who engaged in charities, but not exactly an political activism or a policy activism. And during those times, it was very hard to find volunteers also, and also I don't think we could able to find people for our events or our training programs. Then I think 2011 anti-corruption movement was actually completely changed. So the people who, I mean, like the number of students joined into the anti-corruption protests or also the anti-corruption programs has been hugely increased. Then from there, there is a very fast trend that young people actually started involving in politics. We can see now most of the students, one way or other, they try to involve in either politics or a political discussion. Politics, I'm not saying in partition politics. You needed to be part of a particular political party and engage with them. I'm not saying that way. When I say politics, politics is actually managing people. You can actually involving in smaller communities where we can actually organize. So the guys who's actually leading this Leo Club is actually doing a political activism actually. So and also you can involve trying to educate people about politics, political situation in India, political reforms. So the number of people who's actually joined after the 2011 Anna Hazare movement was actually very huge. Nowadays we will see a lot, especially in the recent years, a lot of people actually trying to understand what is public policy, what is a political reform means. Even recent farm reforms, a lot of people actually organizing these kind of events, trying to understand how these policies will actually affect either positively or negatively. So when we are actually started this, there was a skeptical all the time from the parents that people who engaged in these kind of activities actually neglect the education, and also they don't actually focus on their careers. That was a one thing people during my time actually faced along with me. Then I would be able to actually balance my studies and also with my activities so that I don't get huge pushback from my family. And definitely, they are not supportive initial days, and also they never openly supported, because when they openly supported, I mean, they might think that I might actually do more of this work and then I might neglect it. But
I completely leave the studies part.
yeah. So they kind of being in very neutral. They don't actually oppose all the time, but they always give a certain push towards focus on education. But I was able to manage these two stuff. Then they are not unhappy with what I actually did. Then once we able to actually see a smaller impact we are creating, then they started actually supporting our work these days.
Yeah, sir. And then you said about the 2011 anti-corruption movement. So we guys were too young at 2011 to know about all this. So can you explain more about that particular movement? What happened in that movement, and what was the impact that you guys have created? And I also came through a website which said that you played a key role in 2011 anti-corruption movement.
Um, so 2011 anti-corruption activism was actually, I would say, like a tipping point of the Gen Lokpal bill. So But before that, there has been a different organization, like a fifth pillar looks at Youth for Better India and India Against Corruption, Jago and Janagraha. There are n number of organizations which is actually trying to promote more transparent and also accountable institutions that can actually leads to better governance. So, but these efforts has been very, very small. As I said, number of people who is very interested in these kind of activities in those days were very, very less. There was a times when we actually did a seminar just less than 10 people. I so but when we actually reaching out to the momentum, when Anna Hazare came into the public, then there was a huge momentum. And also we see unparalleled support from the civil society and also a lot of different groups like schools and um, associations, youth groups, and also some of the private associations. Every corners of the people actually rallied behind Anna Hazare. Um, so for this, there was a reason why. I mean, like it took us so long. Um, So most of the people actually remember that 2011, after the 2011 the protests, Jan Lokpal bill able to pass in the parliament. But before that, parliament actually rejected, I think, 7 to 9 times. Jan Lokpal bill was rejected by the members of parliament because there is no incentive for them to actually pass the bill. Because if they pass the bill, that is actually going to reflect on them because it will limit their power, their possibility to do the corruption or exercise the power they had. Because power is something which is actually very, very central part of the corruption, actually. Because so when you have a power, you will always actually abuse, except the few, very, very few exceptions. But most of the time, power tends to corrupt, absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. So power is something that actually stays with the most of the time state. I mean, state in a governmental sense. Then whenever they try to exercise it, and there has been a huge abuse of those power, and which is actually lead to the corruption. Most of the times we see that when private people comes into the picture, then corruption happens because a lot of people, I as a private citizen and also you as a private citizen, we needed to actually gain certain services. Then sometimes we don't have an option other than the bribing. I'm not saying we should bribe, but we would able to actually build an institution that can actually enable us and at the same time incentive us to not to bribe the public servants, because most of the times we are actually forced our hand to actually bribe these things. um, I the most of the above middle class or rich people can actually stand there not to give the bribe. They have an ability because they can actually postpone whatever the work they are doing, and they can actually not able, I mean, they don't need it to, they can delay their work. But imagine a middle class people or below middle class students who needed to actually apply for a university. If the deadline is passed, if you don't have these caste income, these certificates, then what will you do? You don't have an option because it's actually your life and death matter. So sometimes most of the middle class or below middle class people forced to give the bribe. We cannot criticize them, but we needed to actually build the institution that can actually incentivize people to work well. I And also there is a huge issue on misconception about the corruption is, we most of the time see it is we need to disconnect these corrupt officials. So we actually put more institutions. If you see organization that is actually enforcing these rules are more corrupt than the earlier institution they are actually prosecuting. because the people who is actually working these enforcement agencies have a more power than existing governmental agencies, though they become a more corrupt instead of actually enforcing it. So we needed to actually take back that power and give back that power to the people. That is only happens when we would able to actually build the institutions that can actually enable us to take back, limit these powers of these government employees or also state officials. At the same time, when we actually keep the power close to the people, then we would able to question them. If our corporator do something wrong, I will have access to question him. Then he or she will actually try to be more honest person, or they try not to do corruption, at least in an open way. And if a central minister able to do that, or else some high-end official in Delhi able to do something, and someone in the Hyderabad, someone in the Beluru cannot actually question him, maybe not in a direct manner, require a bigger force to actually question these kind of people. So decentralizing power to the local level would actually help us to um, limit the power of the people, power of the government servant who is actually using excessively. So this is the things that in the 2011 protest, through people actually rallied for more these kind of institutions. One of the key institution is actually Jan Lokpal. So where we will have a central independent authority which can actually investigate and prosecute the people who is actually involved in these corruptions. Because if CBI is actually doing investigation, then there will be influence from the Minister of Home Affairs from the central government. So if they're actually prosecuting ruling party, then there will be influence from the ruling party. Then the investigation will be favorable to the ruling government. It is same with the most of the time. So we required an independent institution. That is where Jan Lokpal bill actually comes into the picture. But to end the corruption, to build a system where we will have more transparent and accountable institutions, Jan Lokpal bill is actually just a beginning. In India, most of the times our power is actually very centralized. It is largely exercised by the central government, where it can actually decide most of the stuff. Even though we have federal structure, but power always actually been with the central government. But at a certain level, we would able to empower our federal structure more maturely. But during the emergency period, our the powers during the emergency period, most of the times the power local governments had actually revoked. Then the power as it actually centralized. When power centralized, it actually lead to large number of corruptions. We can see n number of corruption cases in last 20 years. Other scam, 2G scam, coal scam, Commonwealth scam. We can see a lot of these. These are all actually happen because of lack of accountability. At the same time, the overpower centralization with the people and the government. So in 2011 is the time when most of the India actually rallied for these institutions. I hope we would also see more clearly where we can actually limit the power of these people, the people who is in the power. At the same time, we wherever we would able to not limit that power, we would able to actually decentralize that power to the local level where people will have access to these people.
Yes, sir. And also I have seen in your profile that you have visited a lot of countries to represent our Indian organizations. So, how different did you feel their laws would make their corruption? I mean, their system more transparent in order to stop the corruption. And how different is that from India?
um, I think I was able to, through my work, I was able to visit multiple countries, able to meet multiple organizations um, uh, that actually do public policy research and also advocacies and reforming their laws, reforming their policies. So most of the time, when I visit a country which is actually largely developed, they have a less corruption. Most of the times, when I visit less developed countries or third world countries, most of the time they actually have this problem of corruption. When I actually try to understand the problems in a more public policy point of view, I realized it is actually one of the institutions that have a very direct correlation is how much power government had and how much corruption that country had. Most of the Western liberal democracies have a limited government. They try to actually put their government as limited as possible. So the role of the government in the people's lives is as less as possible. And so this has a direct impact on the corruption. This is actually, so if someone actually wanted to misuse the power, they will have a different kind of checks and balance system where they cannot able to do that. Am I saying these are all corruption free countries? No. Am and also I'm not also saying that they don't have a scandals, they don't have a corruption, but at least they don't have as much as our countries, developing countries have. And this is a direct connection with the limited government. The democracies well function more efficient manner when they have these uh, governmental institutions, or else I would say these constitutional institutions, where they will have a government, where they will have more effective media with freedom of speech, and also they will have a strong judiciary, which actually uphold the efficient manner, which uphold the rule of law more efficiently. At the same time, they will most of them have a freedom of information act, which is actually a right to information act. In India these days, the right to information act is diluting, even though it is actually a very powerful tool to utilize to actually fight the corruption. But these most of these Western countries have these institutions, and there is a very strong checks and balance system between executive branch and also parliamentary branch, legislative branch. So most of the time, executive branch always actually had limited by the legislative branch. If United States president wanted to actually wage a war or else wanted to actually make a huge law, it has to be passed by the Congress. Congress, which is actually parliament, equivalent to the parliament, which is actually most powerful body in the United States. In India, parliamentary bodies, I would say, like it's most of the times for namesake. Legislative bodies doesn't have much power. Most of the power actually with the prime minister or chief minister, and the MLAs doesn't even know what is their role is actually, and most of the time they just actually sign or vote whatever the chief minister or the prime minister actually says so, because they don't even actually differs most of the time, even though they genuinely have a different opinion than the prime minister or a party they actually have. These institutions and check and balance system actually help them to build more transparent, accountable institutions. I think we are on that way. I'm not saying we are not doing well. We actually able to achieve so much in last 1 to 2 decades, but this is actually very long road. Um, then we can achieve it, but we should able to see it. What is actually root cause of it? Then we need to dealt with the problems with a more open manner, with the discussions, debates with intellectual students and different stakeholders of these problems.
Yes, let's hope India reaches there very soon. accountability and transparency in the system. India develops it very soon. Let's hope for the best. And sir, keeping all these aside, the laws and policies that the government have to make in order to stop corruption. So keeping this all the rules apart, so the change should start from oneself. Like, who should take the responsibility? Is it the education system, or is it the parents? Is it the who should take the responsibility that a person is being transformed towards a corrupt in India? So who should take the responsibility of that?
I would say it's a collective responsibility. All of us have a unique role to actually combat this. One, we require cultural change. A cultural change. I'm not talking about a cultural in a social sense. Culture of governance. At the same time, culture of people, how they actually treat these government. Bureaucrats. Because before Right to Information Act, most of these elite group people who is in the higher positions in the government, they think that they're actually untouchable. I mean, no one can question them. There was a thing about this is Babka Sarkar, so no one actually can able to touch us. But Right to Information Act actually changes that one. Now everyone who is actually in has a huge power, at the same time who's considered as a elite persons in the society, now they know that they are in people's reach. They could able to actually people able to question them and also able to stop them if they did something wrong. There is a change in that one. At the same time, there is something that always miss. We actually losing it is actually at a personal level, integrity and character. Character and integrity are two important things that need to be promoted among the young people, which is actually losing most of the time these days. But I think we could able to do that one. I'm not saying about you needed to have religious moral principles. I'm not saying that one. Character integrity is being more honest, able, being able to act more genuinely, able to act in a more good manner with other people. These are the things I was talking about. Having a more integrity and character is actually something that we as a personally we can actually do. But something the legislative bodies, these people who's actually in the public policy and governance has to do is they needed to actually build a policy or an institution that will enable good people to do good, bad people to do bad hardly. So this, if there is a culture or institution that can help us to do good, more good, then that will actually help us. At the same time, they needed to build an institution that will actually harden if someone wanted to do bad, whether it is actually civil society, private person. At the same time, if he's actually someone in the government, if he is actually someone in the business. So we need those institutions. So even though if we put a bad person as in charge of our country, he shouldn't have a chance to do the bad thing. So we needed to build a frame, such a policy framework, such a constitutional framework. We had we would able to build a very very great constitution at the same time, which has a lot of loopholes. We actually dump a lot of practices from across the world, which sometimes we're proud of, but sometimes which is actually very, very bad for us because we have rules that are actually outdated, which is actually not even relevant to us. Sometimes we never actually amend any of the our laws since 1950. Those are the laws that we needed to actually relook it and also amend, or else close those rules. So through this one, we would able to actually build. We all are having a very collective responsibility. Each one of the player has their unique role in this one.
Yes, everyone have to change from their perspective, not in order to blame the government for not doing something. The change has to begin from the
Yes, blaming them doesn't actually help us. We need
yeah.
to build an incentive for them to do good.
Yes, sir. And sir, the Swatantra Foundation. So, can you tell something about that? What was the main motto behind that establishment of Swatantrata Foundation that you made?
So, Swatantrata is it, its foundation lies in few years before, where I was actually run another organization called India's Future Foundation, which is actually where we promote ideas of open market economy, at the same time limited government, and also promoting entrepreneurship along with that one. So at the same time, in 2016, we actually started a program called Youth Parliament, which is actually where we do a lot of discussions, debates by youth on various policy issues, how these policies are actually impacting, and also if where we can youth can actually contribute to these policy ideas. So last year, when actually we look up, we try to actually build an organization that can promote ideas and policies which can enable every person to build a decent life with dignity. So through this one, we actually try to combine both entrepreneurial outreach and also political outreach, where we try to reach the people who's engaged in politics and business and bring them together to actually support the policies that can actually help India to grow much faster economically and also politically. So to achieve that one, we actually follow three things. We actually try to educate young people and students, and we actually promote the ideas we believe that will actually help India. And also, we actually pick up the policy, certain policy areas where we think these policies can actually impact a large number of people, such as national education bill, and also we try to promote agricultural reforms, and also we actually strongly proponents for decentralization, which where we actually run the campaigns, and also we did a campaign on responsible spending, which is actually one of the areas we keenly gonna interest in the coming months, where public spending of India has been reaching very high, and the public debt has been no one actually talking about the public debt, which every one of us has to pay back, and politicians actually spending these money they think like this money is actually gonna produced from the trees. They announce like huge number of social welfare schemes. I strongly think which is actually not helping most of the people, and which is actually large waste of money. If we continue to do those social welfare schemes, then we will be from being one of the most important and also fastest growing largest democratic economies to a bankrupting country like Venezuela. I mean, like, if we actually go through wasting this money through these social welfare schemes, then our future is actually Venezuela. We will bankrupt, and that will not only spoil our economy, but also it will lead to political instability and also the integrity of our federal structure. So there is a core problem that lies with these unresponsible huge spendings that we wanted to actually tackle on, and also we're going to work on various other areas later in the years. But these are the things we actually do, and through Swatantrata, that's one of the aims we actually wanted to actually try to pass the bills, try to introduce the new kind of ideas that mainstream organizations are not touching, and also we we also entertain the new ideas, which is actually sometimes considered as a radical ones, such as free private cities or a competition between private cities, and also there is a one thing called seasteading institute where people try to build long-term settlements on the seas where each these seasteading cities can actually compete with different cities where they can actually improve the governance of the I mean like where we can actually easily test these ideas with these floating cities. So we are okay with entertaining radical ideas as long as we actually it doesn't actually harm anyone. We would actually okay with it, and we actually try to examine these ideas, and if these ideas going to work, then we definitely try to put up campaigns to reach out the younger people and also the entrepreneurs who can actually help us to build these ideas to become a reality.
Yes, we wish you all the very best for all the future endeavors and for all the future projects that you are gonna do.
Thank you.
Yeah, sir. And then Karamveer Chakra award that you received. Can you share the experience that you had with by receiving the award, and for what did you receive the award?
This was a combination of my activities both for anti-corruption activism at the same time public policy, and it was referred by someone who was actually used to work with me during the anti-corruption movement. Um, this is the award that I actually gave to the people who was actually involved in social work in a different fields. It need not necessarily for the political activism. Some people actually received it for their work in the media, their work in entrepreneurship, their work in the student activism, and there has been a n number of very diverse set of people who's actually recipients of these awards, and it was a great experience to seeing a wide range of people and also their achievements, the way they're actually impacting. The work we do is actually one of the way to actually contributing, trying to create impact for this on the society. There has been n number of ways, which is actually depending on our passions and also our expertise, we can actually always play a key role. I mean, like Teach for India do very very great work in there, and Leo Club is actually doing amazing work by actually bringing different kind of people and are sharing their experiences, and our organization trying to push the policy change. And India Against Corruption was actually pushed for the strong anti-corruption organization. There has been entrepreneurial organizations and student clubs who is actually trying to promote entrepreneurship. There is n number of charities who is actually helping people who's in need. So this is actually creating impact on society has always many ways, and during these award ceremonies, the the diverse range of people are actually very huge and also very inspiring to actually hear their stories, how they are actually contributing to society is actually gives very huge inspiration to push our work a little bit further. And
Yes,
yeah,
yes, sir. Come on. Yes, sir.
yeah, yeah.
Throughout your entire journey, whom would you consider the most as your inspiration? Whom do you consider as your inspiration in your life?
Um, um, Apart from my father, I would say JP Narayan is my political guru, someone who's actually changed my life in completely different direction. Because IT is actually very my strong passion. My uncle is actually an IT engineer. So then I actually observed him when I was in high school. Then I wanted to actually go for IT all the time, and then from IT to non-profit, JP has been a very key player. So he actually shown. So before the JP, I was most of the time I was actually see charity is the way to, and also see a lot of problems where we cannot able to help most of the times. and we wanted to actually solve those problems. And JP actually shown one of the way. So to solve poverty, you require more economic development. Economic development require better laws, better institutions, better policy framework. To do that one, you require political momentum for these ideas. So JP has been a key player of how I actually see the problem, and also what can be done. He actually shown the way to actually do that one. Then I had a multiple times, which is actually changed very different directions, but towards larger goal, way to impact the society. So one of the trainings I actually took in Germany was one of the key momentum for me, which actually gave more understanding on these aspects. What is the government? What is the role of the government? How civil society is important? Why media is important? What is the roles that state and civil society and markets has? So what kind of ideas that can actually helps us? What ideas that can actually harms us? This seminar give me a different perspective. So that gave me curiosity to understand these ideas. So so many countries are developed so fast. So I become a student of understanding these countries. I mean, like how they would able to achieve this much growth, economic growth, social growth, and also in terms of human development aspects. And also I started studying what kind of ideas that actually stopping the people to, to actually achieve better, our countries achieve much better. So it become a hobby. Whenever I visit a country, I always try to look the issues in that manner. So if I visit certain country, so if their transportation, public transportation or local transportation is good, I try to look up what kind of policies they actually bring into the picture and which actually lead. And also I check the cultural changes. So what kind of ideas that actually change a culture, both in a social and political senses. And it gives me hope, because a lot of countries has a very inspiring stories, including India, because India has seen a phenomenal growth last 2 decades, and no one ever thinks we actually bring millions of people out of poverty, and that was a huge story. So there has been a small stories that actually creating a huge impact on various manners, which sometimes we directly cannot able to see it. But I think that seminar training program there in Germany was actually also another center point of my life, which actually turned me very different direction.
Yes, sir. And then, what according to you is success, sir? Have you achieved it in the past campaigns that you have did, or you are going to achieve it further? What do you consider as your success to your life?
I would see success is something I would put it as a, if I would able to do whatever I thought to do by the end of the day, that is success for me. In a smaller piece, but that is what, if I would able to do what I wanted to do within the time I actually set, that would seems to be success for me. But success is I would say like a constant. You needed to actually, because
Yeah.
sometimes if I actually get a job, is it a success? Or if I actually able to get a more higher roles in that job, is a success? I mean, like achieving one level is a
It's a journey.
success.
Rather
So
than
it's
considering this as a
constant.
destination, we can consider this as a journey. Like
Yeah,
success.
journey.
Yeah,
So I would put, if I would able to do whatever I want to do by the end of the day, then this day is actually successful for me. Then every day I have a target. I can see my successes. Then it gives a certain positivity to us to actually move forward, because
yes,
every
sir.
day you have, yeah.
Is there any particular thing that you have to achieve you wanted to achieve in your life? Like create awareness regarding corruption to entire India, make India corrupt, something like that.
I would say for that one, I would say making India out of absolute poverty is something that I would like to see. But I mean, like, I'm not the one person who can actually say no one, because I mean, like, it's a collective thing. But we can actually contribute that larger goal with the smaller targets, where we can actually try to bring in new laws, reforms to the existing laws, and also we can create awareness on the people where they can actually create impact. But I would say, I mean, eliminating absolute poverty is something that I would like to see, not only in India, across the world. That is something, very, very first thing that we needed to tackle as a collectivity.
Yes, sir. And there is one more question from the chat section. One of our viewers asked this. So, what do you think is the future of Indian political system, sir? And how should it transform in order to form a better India?
There was a time when I told you German seminar was something that I take as a very personal turning point. Indian politics, are most of the developing countries' politics, not an ideological based. Most of it actually mostly believe same ideology because of the dominance of the Congress party. Because Congress party has a certain ideals, most of the time it actually, even though there are other parties had competing with the Congress party, but their ideals are same. If you take a DMK, more or less their manifestos are same. How they actually see is same. The political, most of the times in the Western world are the developed, I mean, like a well-established democracies, developing countries. You see, political parties are divided by their ideological position or their worldview. Worldview is something that every political party must have, how they see the world, how they actually approach certain problems. You can say like a socialist, liberal, conservative, or a communist. These are all the ideals that actually runs most of the Western world, or else most of these developed countries. So Indian political parties doesn't have the worldview. Most of the time, they just go with if if any of you watch, there is a very, very good movie in Kannada called Humble Politician Nugraj. I should suggest to watch, where this corporator wanted to create a manifesto. Then he don't know what is a manifesto means. Then he actually took a manifesto from other guy, and he told his assistant to add it to. If they're going to actually give one color TV, we will give a two color TVs. If they're going to spend 100 rupees, we're going to spend 200 rupees. So most of the time, political parties are same. They're same side of the coin, and they're not actually competing ideologically or are policy oriented. So when the political parties or Indian political environment actually move from actually doing a politics to actually issue based or ideological based, then there is actually definitely a progress. I'm I see certain problems in one way, and some other people sees. I'm actually support the form reforms done by the BJP, and then someone else actually opposes in intellectual level. Then there will be intellectually stimulating conversations. Then it would actually result more productive manner. If parliament, imagine if a parliament session is run on the merits, demerits of the policy, or then idea. I mean, like if parliamentarians actually discuss, debate on the merits and demerits of an idea, that would definitely change how we actually solve the problem, and also it actually increase the efficiency, effectiveness of that idea or policy. But now it's not happening. See local assemblies, even parliament is more or less same, but at least parliament has a better standards than the local assembly. Most of the time, local assemblies has always the politics has been to the personal level. They're criticizing a chief minister or MLAs at a personal level, what their deeds, what they're not done. There is no single very, very interesting intellectual conversations in the parliament. Our legislative bodies not doing what they're supposed to do, then they're doing everything they they're actually not supposed to do. So if the political climate change towards more policy ideological orientation, then we will have a better results. This is something actually we don't see in any well developed countries. Most of the times, I'm not saying ideological based political parties will actually give better results, but it actually gives at least a better sense of understanding for the people on these policies. Imagine Rahul Gandhi and Narendra Modi had a heated debate in a parliament on a certain bill only on merits demerits of the policy instead of focusing on personal agendas, personalization. Then most of the media will cover, most of the organizations will actually discuss about it, most of the people will actually think about it. Then it will actually become a more effective policy idea. So I would say if we would able to, I had an idea one day if we would able to achieve that level of political equality, then that will be start for, I think, almost a new age in the politics of India. But I hope it will. I mean, like recent years, the number of people who is actually participating in public policy is actually increased a lot. Then indirectly, these participations actually enabling political parties to focusing on their policies or their ideas, how they're going to actually solve the current issues of India. So I'm optimistic. Definitely there will be change, but I'm afraid it will be slow.
Yes, sir. Let's hope for the best.
Yeah.
So there is one more guy in the chat section who has asked, "What's your opinion on Indian Anti-Corruption Bureau? Is it up to the mark? What is it doing up to the mark? What it is supposed to do?"
Uh, Again, it's a problem of independence of the institution. And most of the anti-corruption bureaus largely directly, indirectly influenced by the state or central governments. Unfortunately, when they don't have a that independent authority in a work nature, they cannot do their work very very well. So most of the time, they would able to actually pick up the people, low level employees, low level bureaucrats, and low level business people who are actually giving bribes to getting things done. So they will most of the time they will catch these kind of people, but they're not able to actually catch the real people who's actually doing huge power abuses. When they would able to actually build anti-corruption bureau as a more independent constitutional authority, then there is hope for them to actually work more effectively. It's not an ACB's problem actually. It's actually we didn't actually build that institution where it can work more independent manner, so that there is always influence from the government. Then they cannot actually prosecute people who is in the power. Then there is no point of it, right? End of the day, most of the people who is actually going to do these abuse of the power, who is in the power. Then if we don't able to actually investigate them, then there is no purpose for these guys to exist. Then they will actually focusing on more low level and government people or the business people who's actually involved in these small corruption and activities. So I think we should actually build a more comprehensive independent constitutional authorities under the General Lokpal, and so that might actually increase chances of these people to actually work well. At the same time, these people should be limited by the legislative bodies, where they should actually accountable for the parliamentary committees and also for the legislative committees. And we needed to empower these legislative bodies because legislative bodies are almost dead in our country.
Yes, very true that. Yes, it was really amazing talking to you. And before we have a word of thanks, would you like to say something to all the youth watching out there?
Okay. You guys doing an amazing job actually bringing different stories, different people, different kind of experiences, and keep doing that one. And as a personally, most of the people actually think that world is actually not doing well. We are actually going through some of the worst times of our period, but unfortunately, it is not true. What data suggests is actually we are actually living in one of the best times of ever in the human history. We had a power 24 hours power supply. We have a fridges. We have a laptops. We have cell phones. We have a better health conditions. Um, and also we have better health facilities. We have better transportation. We have cheaper ways to actually travel, and we have gyms. We have everything. I'm not saying we achieved everything, but when you compare 10 years with this one, we actually went very, very, very advanced level. So we needed to actually see our achievements positively, and we needed to actually trying to understand what kind of ideas, policies that enable us to actually achieve this stuff. Try to actually repeat that one. Try to build a better lives for personally for us first, then also to along with our communities and our societies. Then to do our work in a positive manner, and the future is going to be very positive. Definitely, we will actually reach more heights politically, socially, humanitarianly. We will actually going towards better every day. So we don't need to actually see we're actually running in a backward direction. Keep positive and also trying to actually involve whatever the ways you guys can actually involve in a either social activity or entrepreneurial activity or your community associations. Do whatever you are best at, and bring the change along with you. And all the best to all of you. And I think WIT actually produced a huge number of quality graduates and students across the years. I think you guys definitely will actually make a larger impact uh, in a personal lives and also in a community level. And all the best to all of you. And thank you so much for having me. And I really had a very, very good time with all of you.
Sir,
Yeah, thank
sorry
you
to
very much,
interrupt.
sir.
My friend Samarth has two questions. So Samarth,
Sure.
hello Samarth.
Yeah, Samar. Yeah, Samath, you can ask. Your voice is
Samarth,
not
you are not
audible.
audible.
Yeah, sorry, sir. I think there is an network issue from his side.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, Samarth, could you please type in the chat box if possible? Yeah,
Sir, I think he's typing in the chat box here.
Yeah, no
yeah.
problem.
Okay. Yes, sir. He has posted the question. Sir, in the anti-corruption movement, we saw two ways: being in the power and then working, and other one, the Hazares way. So then, I didn't get the question. Which one would you choose?
Okay, I try to reframe the question if I'm getting it correct. I think he's asking which way you would choose, either like Arvind Kejriwal going into the government and actually do that, or else the other. Um, um, if you asked this question a few years back, I would actually say I would be go with Arvind Kejriwal. I was very strong, politically motivated at that point of time, wanted to involve in politics and run for the office. But for now, I no longer have that aspiration anymore. So I would, most of the time, I wanted to actually go mostly public policy. I will involve or work with the state, but I'm not interested to be in the state. Maybe advisories or leading, providing suggestions through public policy suggestions for these governments, or running grassroots activism for the change we actually aspiring for. Because I would say this would be a more effective ways for me, because once we actually enter into the political game, it actually changes our equations and our incentives, our motivations actually changes. So I would rather stay out of it, trying to influence from the outside to make the change possible, than actually join. But I'm not saying this is the correct one or this is not the correct one. I would say this is the way that which actually fits for me more better manner. I think I mean, like, different people actually can choose different options and best of their ability, and if they would able to make change within the government, then definitely good.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for answering. And then moving on to the next big segment, we will have vote of thanks by Umair Ali.
Sir, that was an extremely insightful session, sir. Thank you so much for making our morning fruitful. Our day fruitful. So, VIT Leo Club wishes you all the best for your future endeavors. Keep inspiring us, sir. And much thanks to those who joined the meeting for being a perfect audience. Thank you so much, guys. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.